Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's your boy Superior, and thank you for joining Superior Thinking, where we are committed to an intellectual integrity and committed to a moral honesty. And today we're going to be talking about reparations. Now, I've decided I'm going to break this down into two parts because when I was doing my study, kind of like familiarize myself with what actually reparation looks like, who has the United States giving reparations to, and some of the arguments on why some people think reparations should be one thing over another, or if reparations should be given anyway. So with everything that I found out, I decided to make this into two parts, or this is going to be an extremely long video. So I just kind of want to break this down because I know a lot of people's attention span isn't that long, so I'm gonna try to keep this as compact as possible. So what we're going to do is watch two videos. We're going to commentate over two videos, and with these two videos, what my goal is to try to hear out the most common reasons why some people think reparations shouldn't be even a thing, and why some people think reparations should be in a form of just, kind of some of the social programs that already exist, and just put money into a community instead of like, a check that goes into your account, or free housing, or whatever the case is. So we're gonna watch these two videos, and we're going to kind of go through and answer some of these questions as we go along. So let's go ahead and start with the first video. This one is Trevor Noah and some older black guy I've never really heard of, and just be ready. Like I watched this, of course, I took some notes so I can make sure I know what I'm talking about, but it gets a little crazy to listen to. But let's go ahead and get started. All right, let's take a listen here.
So to your question, I think you have to understand what the word reparations means first. So reparations, you are repairing something that you have broken. You are paying for something that you were supposed to pay for. I'm not saying that there aren't people living in America today who are suffering and are going through pain and strife because of what's happening when it comes to the machines taking jobs, factories becoming industrialized, etc. But reparations is a specific conversation about a specific time in America, and that is black people were slaves.
Article that got a lot of attention in the Atlantic a couple of years ago,
now,
called
this
The
guy
Case
right
for
here.
Reparations by Ta-Nehisi Coates. Quote, "White supremacy is a force so fundamental to America that it is difficult to imagine the country without it. Reparations is the price we must pay to see ourselves squarely."
Now, before he answers, let me give you, Trevor Noah did a pretty good job with explaining what reparations is. Of course, let's go to good old Google, and reparation is the making of amends for a wrong one has done by paying money to or otherwise helping those who have been wrong. Now, that's a really basic, you cannot argue reparations definition. It's not like some sort of hard to explain, hard to understand, some sort of scenario where reparations would be paid. On the second video, I'm going to be explaining the United States have paid reparations before, so this is not some sort of new thing here. And this quote here by this young man, I'm not gonna even try to pronounce that name. He says, "White supremacy is a force so fundamental to America that it is difficult to imagine a country without it. Reparations is the price we must pay to see ourselves squarely." So keyword is we must pay, because and oh boy, he's gonna kind of hit on this kind of later on in the video, but can you imagine America if America didn't choose the route of slavery? I'm pretty sure, honestly, with all the research I did, America would not be the greatest nation it is today. You know what I'm saying? So let's go ahead and continue.
Close quote. And Tom Sowell, who actually saw Jim
This
Crow
white
with his
guy,
own eyes and experienced it,
this is a cracker for
responds
real.
how?
It would be nice to know his evidence for what he said. just to be old-fashioned about it. No, it was a rotten system.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know how we get from that to reparations. I mean, what we see in the United States in terms of the bad things, you see all around the world.
Okay.
If you were to give reparations to everyone whose ancestors had been slaves, I suspect that you would have to give reparations to more than half the entire population of the globe.
Now, stop right here. If that is the case, and we all know slavery was not just an American thing. It was slavery all across the world. Haiti got done dirty just recently. I just, did light research with the whole Haiti situation. And there's been slavery, not in every continent because there were some sane people back then, but slavery was not just an American thing. And he's saying American slavery, we, the black slaves, should not feel bad because slavery was a worldwide thing. And he's saying, well, we're going to have to pay reparations to more than half the... Well, you should. You know what I'm saying? If it was mass rape across the whole world, would that make rape okay because it's a common thing? No, that does not make any sense. Now, when I first seen this video, it's like I already knew, oh boy, this dude right here. You know what I'm saying? This one right here just gonna have to hit in the throat and just walk away, and whatever happens to him happens. Because it's like, are you seriously saying just because it happened in other countries, slavery, where you see someone not as a person but more of a property, and just imagine abuse, the level of the abuse that will happen when you see someone as property and not as humans. That's happened across the world, so therefore it's okay. Bro, you already lost me with that one. That's not even common sense thinking right there. But let's continue.
Slavery was not confined to one set of races. I suspect that most of the people who were either slaves or slave owners around the world were neither white nor black. I mean, this was
and that's true, but it still doesn't make slavery okay. If black people in some other country enslaved Mexicans, I would be saying those black people should be paying reparations to the Mexicans or their descendants for the slavery and the harm and the consequences of slavery that happened. That's the point. It's not a black thing. It's not a white thing. It's wrong and a right thing. You know what I'm saying? So he's kind of stuck in his like, oh, black people shouldn't feel bad because it was slavery all across the world with different colors, slavery, these. It's like that doesn't make any difference. Wrong is wrong, and a debt is paid if someone or a group of people has wronged another group of people. That's common sense right there.
It was a universal curse of the human species.
Africa, the Middle East, Asia, slavery took place everywhere.
And it continued elsewhere long after it was abolished in the Western countries.
Right.
You know what I mean? I've even heard people say like, oh, but there were some of the Irish who were indentured. Like, yeah, slavery. Look at the numbers, look at the time, look at the level of work. You could not work toward your freedom. For most black people in America, this was a time when you lived and died as a slave. And so that's what reparations is about.
The other thing, I have a slight sidebar in there on the history of slavery.
Mm-hmm.
The history of slavery existed all over the world for thousands of years among all sorts of people, as far back as the history of the human species goes.
Okay.
It's one of many evils that the left tries to localize, when in fact it is a universal evil.
So what he just did there was take slavery, which he said himself that's been happening thousands upon thousands of years to all kind of different types of people, not just black people, and he quickly tried to make that a left thing. So he quickly took something that happened to everybody and anybody back then and make it a political Democrat thing. You know what I'm saying? If you didn't inject politics and make this a Republican versus Democrat thing, then you would take the politics out of it and make it a human thing. You know, humans did this bad, horrific thing to another human being. But now when you inject politics into it, now it's oh, these Democrats are trying to make this a bad thing. And it's like, no, humans make this a bad thing. What does being a Democrat or a Republican or whatever you want to call yourself, what does that have to do with a human doing another terrible thing to another set of humans? I don't understand how those two connect like that. And he knows what he's saying when he inject a whole liberal are trying to make this a thing. You know what I'm saying? It's like, no, if you took politics out of it, every human being would agree with that. You know what I'm saying? So with him trying to inject politics, that was pretty daggone, like, you know, stupid.
But more than that, as much as slavery is repudiated around the world today, prior to the 18th century, I know of no serious effort to abolish the institution anywhere.
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 Not in Africa, not in the Arabian
Not
world.
in Africa in the 21st.
Yeah, that doesn't make it okay. Just because it continues in other countries doesn't make
century. When Adam Smith wrote in 1776 that the only place in the world where slavery had been abolished completely was Western Europe. And so this was
as late as the year this country was founded.
yes. And so the idea that this is something that the United States had that nobody else had, or
who is making that argument that only the United States has, you know, did this horrific things to African Americans. We're only talking about the United States paying reparations to the descendants of African Americans is because we live in the United States. So we're going to talk about that first. Then we're going to talk about the Indians that were here first, pay more reparations to them because that was America's original sin. And then we're going to talk about other reparations that belong to Haiti. You know what I'm saying? And then we're going to continue the path of trying to correct wrongs that happened in the past. But right now, I live in America, so we're going to talk about America issues first before we start trying to fix other people's problems. You know what I'm saying? So who is arguing that only America had this issue? I don't know.
other countries that didn't have, it's been estimated that there are more slaves in India than in the entire Western Hemisphere.
Yeah, that's not good.
And that's before and after Columbus got here.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
And so I hear what you're saying, but I think that's a completely separate conversation that needs to be had about the now. Because if you are not careful, what you then do is you combine everybody's suffering into the same ball and you make it seem like all injustices have the same weighting, and they don't. Just like crimes. You know, theft isn't the same as murder. We don't try them the same way. And as much as there is a white person who's suffering today, I feel for anybody who's suffering because I know what it's like to be poor. I know what it's like to suffer. I didn't come from a wealthy family. We struggled when I was growing up. But I also understand that there are levels of that suffering, you know? And so sometimes white people, it does block a white person because you go, white privilege. And a person goes, I'm poor and I'm white. Where's the privilege? You know, white people are like, I wish I could activate my white privilege. I wish I could do it right now. White privilege, give me something. I get that. I get that. Trust me, I get it. It is hard to accept that you have benefits because of the color of your skin if you cannot see the benefits that you have.
The book that I'm writing now, I discovered this is true not only in the United States, it's true in England, and the situation is wholly different. And yet, if you read the data, for example, from London, the educational tests and so forth, you see that there, immigrants from Africa pass this test they have. I'm talking about low-income people now. Nearly 60% of the time. Blacks from Caribbean, like 50%, so on. Native-born.
See right there, he's not even like sure with his facts here. You know, this percentage. So that's already shaky ground right there.
Whites in the same low-income bracket pass this test 30% of the time. And it's the same thing. The foreign people come in, they haven't had generations of being steeped in the welfare state vision, the vision of grievances, victimology, and resentments, the idea that there are enemies out there dedicated to keeping you down. That's the message that's been pumped into the head of the white lower class in Britain. And that's the image that's been pumped into the black low-income people in the United States.
Okay. Now, when he said that, I damn near did a backflip when watching this at like 12 o'clock at night. So what he's trying to say is, in this other country, you know, how slavery, when it ended and whatever happened, and they kind of, pretty much what he said was, they got over it. You know what I'm saying? What happened is what happened. They got over it, so they were able to both thrive and live together in harmony, and now they're, you know, just a great nation. And, you know, they forgot about the 400 years plus of slavery, generations after generation after generation after, it was so many generations, it's ridiculous. But so pretty much what he's trying to say is, we as black Americans should just forget, because that's what's holding us back. And it's like Black Wall Street, 1921, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Can you imagine being a child in that time and just seeing a bunch of white people storm through your neighborhood, killing everybody, killing your parents, killing your friends, killing your aunties, destroying where you live, destroying your businesses? You don't think that's going to have an effect on you growing up? Do you think you need social media? Do you think you need the news to remind you? Do you think you need Democrats to remind you of what you lived through? And that's just one instance. Oh my God, we can talk for literally 24 hours, a continuous live stream, 24 hours about all the horrendous moments that happened, and starting with slavery. That person doesn't need to be reminded of what happened to them. They lived through it. So what's going to happen? They're going to tell their kids. They're not going to be happy. Their parents were just killed. Or your business was just destroyed. Now you're homeless. Now you've been kicked out where you grew up at. You've been kicked out. Your friends killed. Your businesses destroyed. Children killed. Do you think when you have kids, you're just going to not tell them the history that you've been through? No. You're going to tell your kids. Then your kids is going to continue that mind frame of, these white people just ran through and destroyed because we are black. We didn't do anything. Only because of the color of our skin. And we were being successful. Black and successful is what destroyed Black Wall Street. Those two things. Now try explaining that to your kids. Then of course your kids are going to be aware of the people around them. It's not the Democrats pumping that into people's brain. That's just living and telling your story to people. What are you talking about?
Pumped into the head of the white lower class in Britain. And that's the image that's been pumped into the black low-income people in the United States. And the results are the same in both cases.
But the thing I try to explain to a person is, think of it more like golf. Don't think of it as privilege, then think of it like a handicap. Right? In golf, they acknowledge that you are in a position where you need so many advantages to be competitive in the game.
Is that we ought not to be doing this?
You know, there are various laws and policies that benefit one group at the expense of another. Mm-hmm. But I think affirmative action has the distinction of being one that it harms everybody, though in different ways. And so
hey, look, this cracker right here loves this moment, because not only can you have your racist bigotry feelings towards African Americans, to hear another African American tell you what you already kind of believe will put a smile on a cracker's face like that. You know what I'm saying? He just threw his arm on the table like he just lost all professionalism. You know what I'm saying? He's not standing up straight, and he just relaxed at this point. He's like, oh, I don't have to say not a damn thing. Let this bootlicker right here say every bigotry thing that I wish I could say, but I know I would get in trouble because I'm a cracker and people are going to hold me responsible. So let me post up this bootlicker right here so he can just say every racist, ignorant thing that I wish I could say. That'll put a smile on a cracker's face.
But I think affirmative action has the distinction
Affirmative
of being
action.
one that it harms everybody, though in different ways. And so there's a lot of evidence that there are black kids who have all the qualifications to be successes in college, who nevertheless are failures because they are systematically mismatched with institutions whose standards they don't meet.
Okay, first off, affirmative action, okay? Affirmative action, the Google definition is in the context of the allocation of resources or employment, the practice or policy of favoring individuals belonging to groups known to have been discriminated against previously. So essentially what that means is helping, which I don't know why helping is such a bad thing to some of these people, helping a group of people who have been decriminalized, discriminated against previously, and now they're at a disadvantage. Affirmative action is not a bad thing. That's not taking black people who are smart and who can, like, in some sort of disadvantage. You know what I'm saying? Because we all know through Jim Crow, and he's lived through, I don't understand why he doesn't understand this. Through Jim Crow, do you honestly think you were going to get a job, a really good job? Now, if it's some janitor job or some, scrubbing toilets and, just, picking, like, you're not going to, they're going to give you that job. But if you're highly qualified for a position back in the 60s and 50s that paid a lot, and you're a black man, do you honestly think a white employer is going to look at your resume, which is highly more qualified than a white candidate who just falls below your application? Do you think he's going to give you the job? Honestly, back in the 50s and 60s, they had you using the bathroom behind the store. So you think he's going to pay you money over a white person? No, don't think so. I don't understand why he thinks just because you highly qualify for something, you're automatically going to get the job. No, that's what racism is. It doesn't care about facts. It doesn't care about logic. They're going to discriminate against you just because, in this instance, because you're black. You know what I'm saying? So affirmative action was put in place to at least to try to eliminate that. And from what I hear, it kind of didn't really serve its purpose because, a lot of people complaining, but the whole point of it is it's supposed to kind of make things fair. And this is just, they should have done so much more, but I don't understand why that's such a bad thing.
Even though they may meet the standards of 80 or 90% of the colleges in America. I remember first aware of this when I was teaching at Cornell, and I found that half the black students at Cornell were on some kind of academic probation. And so I went over to the administration building and looked up the SATs of these students. The average black student at Cornell at that time scored at the 75th percentile.
Which is pretty darn good.
Yes. And so that means that in most colleges in this country, they would have no trouble, and many of them would be on the deans.
Now, once again, he's assuming no bigotry, no racism is going to play a part. But unfortunately, that at least until recently, like in the 80s, you know what I'm saying, where things started really kind of shaking down, it kind of gave people a fair chance. Or even like today, 2021, if I was to go apply for a job, my application is just pimp tight, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna get the job because my qualifications say so. But back then in the 60s, 50s, you're not going into those colleges because guess what? They don't want you. They don't want you in their neighborhood. Why the hell you think they want you in their college? Do you think they care because you scored 90% on some test that they want your black ass in their college? No. Doesn't make sense. So he's assuming that people are going to think like him. Like, oh, he scored really high, so we're going to roll out the red carpet and invite this Negro into our college. No. Don't think so. Do not think so. And then I honestly don't know how many boots he had to lick to really get to where he got, but I'm pretty sure he probably still got some crumbs on the side of his lip, you know what I'm saying?
His list. But at Cornell, the average liberal arts student at that time was in the 99th percentile. And when you're teaching the students like that, you teach at a pace that most people of any race cannot keep up with. And it was always complained that I was assigning all kinds of reading, but heck, I'm teaching kids who are in the top 1%. They can keep up with the reading that I'm assigning.
So Cornell was taking very talented black kids and spending 4 years teaching them to feel inadequate.
Yes, and succeeding at that.
Right? So what they say is you have a handicap of 15, so that means like you're going to be hitting from this tee and you get more chances to get the ball in because we understand the position you're in. And if you're a black person in America, from slavery, from day one.
Pondering all this, I noticed something, a column that you wrote, this is a couple of years ago, in which you rebutted Nicholas Kristof of the New York Times. And Kristof had ascribed the gaps between African Americans and whites in America, gaps in wealth, gaps in educational achievement, the usual gaps, to, and this is a quotation from Kristof, to the lingering effects of slavery, close quote.
Oh, yes.
And here's Tom Sowell, quote, if we wanted to be serious about evidence, we might compare where blacks stood 100 years after the end of slavery with where they stood after 30 years of the liberal welfare state. In other words, we could compare hard evidence on the legacy of slavery with hard evidence on the legacy of liberals, close quote. And
so, once again, he's missing a big chunk of history from slavery to like. Do you know how many times after slavery, black people as a whole try to quote unquote lift themselves up by their own bootstrap? You know what I'm saying? They said, fuck it. You know what I'm saying? We're out of slavery. We're going to try to make the best out of this. Do you know how many times throughout history, black people try to pull themselves up, make something out of themselves, and quickly racism, crackers, take that away from them. They take away the boots that they pulled themselves up with. They found their own boots. They made their own boots. Okay, they didn't find no boots. They had to make their own boots, pull them suckers up, and just when they were pulling them up, racism took that away. This is, once again, this is no Democrat thing. This is no Republican thing. This is just hateful people afflicting harm to other people. How many times does that need to happen? And he didn't mention none of that. Just like Black Wall Street, that's probably one of the best examples because they had their own businesses. Let me pull this up here. They had their own business such as luxury shops, restaurants, groceries, hotels, theaters, barbershops, salons, pool halls, nightclubs, funeral homes, and offices for doctors, lawyers, and dentists, schools, post offices, banks, hospitals, and a jitney service. I don't even know what a jitney service is, but they had one. And guess what? It was taken from them. Do you not understand how history has been repeating itself. So I don't understand how many times does someone need to be resetted at the start line for him to understand that something is not fair here. And this is over a couple of decades. This is not just one time this has happened. This has been happening ever since slavery ended. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, ignorance, man.
The number of injustices that have held black people back in America
That's
amount to an insurmountable, like you look at black people's freedom, you look at black people's land, just land alone. The amount of wealth you can acquire over time if you own land is exponential, because you have the land, you have the fact that you can borrow based on the land.
And let me just throw in here, back in the 18 something, I think it was after the Cold War, something like that. I just remembered, but homes and land were literally given to white people for free. Land and brand new homes were given to people, white people, I should say. And the banks and the contractors made an agreement in order for contractors to get this money, because they built like, in one spot, they built like 170,000 brand new homes on brand new land. The only requirement was that they would not give this to any African Americans. Easy money right there. All I have to do is not give these Negroes a house, and I get this 170,000 home project. Come on, literally thrown at them. The mortgages they were paying back then was less than people's rent that they were black people were living in back then. They were paying close to nothing to live in these brand new homes. And we want to talk about reparations. He wants to argue about affirmative action. I mean, come on, like we can't sit here and pick and choose history to try to make an argument here, bro.
You have the fact that you can use the money that you have borrowed to grow more wealth. You can use it to grow your family's wealth. Just taking that away from black people alone.
Right. And also, if you think you've been wrong.
If you think you've been wronged, oh shoot! If you the nerve of this cracker right here. If you think, and he kind of stuttered. He's like, should I be saying this? But he had the balls to go ahead and say it. If you think you've been wrong, boy, I love that part right there.
Wronged, your recourse might also be more likely to politics. To try to redress this whole redistribution.
Yes. Oh.
Duh. You know what I'm saying? Why do you think a Martin Luther King happened? And if he was never prompted to help other African Americans, or really he wanted to help everybody, we would not be where we're at today. If African Americans back then, because those when the real leaders came out, not none of these fake microwavable, leaders we have today. I'm talking about those real authentic, built for this type leadership. If we didn't have those people, we would not be here today. I guarantee it. So what he's pretty much saying is, so when black people, when these kids grow up and they're hearing the injustices that's happening to them, I'm assuming at that point, to their grandparents, history that persuades them and pushes them to get into, the lifestyle or the objective to try to fix. What is wrong with that? How do you think doctors come about? Because they see an issue. Sometimes, 9 times out of 10, I would put my money on it. A lot of these doctors probably dealt with, their mom dying of cancer. So that pushed them to get their doctor's degree or becoming lawyers because they see the injustices that's been happening in our justice system. So they put themselves in a position so they can try to change the situation. Police officers, black police officers, most of them, well, some of them probably went into law enforcement to try to make a change. What is wrong with that? You know what I'm saying? We still be rolling like the Flintstones if people didn't see an issue and try to fix it. But he's saying, oh, these black people, they're being told their history and they think they've been wrong, so now they want to get into politics to try to fix the wrongs that's happened to their people. What's wrong with that? That's why the key word think. That's why he put that in there. So,
rather than hit the books, acquire the skills, get the job.
And get the job and just work for a white man and then be done wrong by the white man. But you got to keep your head down because master's going to get mad at you. So you must hit the books, get a job, and just work for the white man and have kids and tell your kids to just duck low. Don't look the white man in the eye because he's going to get mad at you. Just work your job and get your money. Don't try to fix the system that's been killing our people for since the beginning of this country. Don't do that. We can't ruffle the white man's feathers. That's pretty much what he's saying. Don't worry about what happened in the past. Just hit the books and pull your pants up and tuck your shirt in and do a little jigaboo dance for the white man to keep them happy. That's pretty much what he's saying.
But the other thing too, one of the my favorite statistic
what is it?
That the poverty rate among blacks as a whole is 22%. Mm-hmm. Among whites as a whole is 11%. And among black married couples is 7.5%.
Every facial expression this damn cracker right here keep doing. Honestly, bro. If I knew I had some bail money, if I knew I had a pretty decent lawyer, I slapped the hell out of him. Oh man, his facial expressions is messing me out.
So
let me rewind.
Among whites as a whole is 11%, and among black married couples is 7.5%.
So,
go ahead, say it.
And it's been and black married couples have never had a poverty rate as high as 10% in any year since 1994.
All right. So to the cry, what is to be done? Tom Sowell answers.
It's been done.
Get an education, get married, have kids after you get married. That's sort of the answer, right?
Well, yes.
But once again, let's ignore the fact back in the 70s, 80s, and even early 90s, black men, specifically black men, been thrown in jail, kidnapped, in my opinion, for little to no crimes they've done. It's already statistically known that black men in prison are put in there more for the same crimes from their counterparts, white men. It's already a proven fact. You know what I'm saying? We all know this. Even today, that's still a fact. So he's saying, oh, Jimmy, like, how come these black parents can't stay together? You know, Jiminy Crickets. Maybe because these racist ass pigs is stealing black men from their family, ripping them apart, throwing them in jail. They don't have bail money, so they stay in there to sometimes years to be put in front of a judge and for little to no crime because we already know crooked cops, and then they thrown in prison. What do you think that's going to happen to that family? Oh no, but he doesn't want to explain that part. He just wants to say, oh, these black families aren't staying together, so their kids are gonna just grow up poor. Like first off, that's not all the equation. But if we're just talking about marriage here, let's not even talk about the crack pandemic, where the CIA was literally pumping drugs into our communities. We're not going to even talk about that.
The things that work for other people tend to work pretty generally.
Bro.
Married, have kids after you get married. That's sort of the answer, right?
Well, yes, and the things that work for other people tend to work pretty generally.
Yeah, back in the 80s, 70s, and 60s, what worked for a white person can work for a black person. Once again, Black Wall Street. Do we need to be reminded of what happens when black people try to and surpass white people, and especially financially? It seems like, some crackers don't like to be outdone financially. You know what I'm saying? That's what happens. But we're gonna skip all that, because that's not important, because that doesn't affect people. That doesn't affect generations. You know what I'm saying?
Is crippling them. And so you combine that with slavery, and then you look at Jim Crow laws. You didn't let black people in America live in the areas that they wanted to live in. They couldn't get loans from the banks that they wanted to get loans from. And then on top of that, when they started getting the loans from American banks were found to be giving them higher interest rates, when in fact they were the same risk
honestly,
as many of the other races that
I looked that up. That's true.
So when you combine all of those things,
it's called redlining.
I think it's safe to say that black Americans have a conversation that they need to be having with the United States. Doesn't involve me, doesn't involve white people, it's like, yo, American government, meet the black people. That's it. Have that conversation.
Once again, the government, if we had a decent government, they would take the initiative to give reparations to the descendants of African Americans and not care what the John Doe in Kentucky thinks about reparations. Do you think, honestly, really?
In terms of political leaders, all the incentives politically are for black leaders to blame all problems in the black community on the larger society.
First off, that might be true. I haven't met every single black leader, but I'm assuming some of them, just like when it comes to any situation, any subject, there's going to be people who try to capitalize off that. You know what I'm saying? But how did Martin Luther King financially benefit off trying to mobilize black people and try to speak to the hearts of white people? He was no millionaire. You know what I'm saying? Actually, he was FBI's most wanted. Honestly, I don't think that was his goal when he tried to, control black people by, putting in the fear of, the white man's gonna get you. Like, I don't understand that. And with this channel here, my goal, obviously, speak to the crackers out there. But most importantly, because, history does play a part. But most importantly, especially today, niggas is our worst enemy, because the power is not in those racist crackers anymore. Now we have to fix what was given to us, which was broken. You know what I'm saying? So that's going to take us to come together as a whole. And a lot of people, a lot of black people don't want to do that because they looking out for themselves. But somebody has to tap into their head. Somebody has to tap into their heart and be like, hey, we in this together. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, we'll say that for another video. But
and that enables them to take on the role of being the defender of the black community against enemies, which in turn creates the situation in which many blacks don't feel that anything that they do is going to help themselves.
That's stupid. Like,
unless it's done politically as a group. That there's no point. I mean, why would you, if you believe what they say, why would you want to knock yourself out in school, knowing that the man is not going to let you get anywhere?
Some people, especially back then, because now it's a different story. I'm slightly different. I'm not gonna be like, we're all just, locking hands with everybody. There's still some racist ass crackers out there. There's still systems that we don't know that's playing in the background that will affect somebody. You know what I'm saying? Because we can't see all, we don't know all. We can't see the minds of people. You know what I'm saying? We don't know the hearts of people. But back then, you know what I'm saying? Once again, in the 70s and 80s, and behind that also, black people could not even think about school because they're killing people in the streets. You know what I'm saying? How can you focus on an education if you don't know the next time you get pulled over by the police, that's going to be your last? You know what I'm saying? That's going to be your ass. You feel me? I don't understand what the hell he's talking about. Back in the 60s, 50s, and beyond that, like I said, just because you hit the books, let's just say someone hit the books, and I'm not saying not every black person wasn't, there was no successful black people back then, but there's millions of black people in America. Especially back then, it was such a small percentage of wealthy, proudful, I think it's the keyword, proudful black people who were wealthy back then. You know what I'm saying? You had to keep your mouth shut. You know what I'm saying? Look down. Don't look the white man in the eye. You say yes sir, no sir, sorry sir. That's the kind of black man I would imagine that was super successful back then. You know what I'm saying? But the ones that spoke out and wanted to right the wrongs of, for their people, obviously was taken down.
Well, one of the most pathetic things I heard in recent years was a young black man saying that, at one point he thought he would join the Air Force and become a pilot. And then he says he realized that the white man is not going to let a black man become a pilot. And he was saying this decades after the Tennessee Airmen had established their reputation in combat in Europe. But the hopelessness is one of the big products of the race industry.
Hopelessness, like I said, hopelessness just doesn't come from Democrats telling you, you know what I'm saying? People can do their own research. And especially back then, it really seemed like there was no way out. I can just imagine. I didn't live in the 60s and the 50s. I wasn't around back then, obviously. But can you imagine what you thought your future would look like living in a society like that? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you heard about what happened in Tulsa, you was in some neighboring state or whatever, you'd be like, they killed them with ease and they got away with it. What makes you think they won't kill my black ass? Now, I can't confirm or deny the story he's telling. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm not sure if that's happened or not, but hopelessness is in our history. Like I told you, the whole same process, just rinse and repeat. That's what's been happening since slavery ended. It's not just the one time that's happened and now black people are good. It's a history of it. So that's what gives people hopelessness. But he's taking the leaders that we had and make it seem like they were leeching off that hopelessness. If anything, they were trying to empower black people. What do you think Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale, why they created the Black Panther Party of Self-Defense? You know what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, listen to what they were saying. they were, we gonna do a video about that, but they were helping their community for free. They weren't getting rich off this. So, bruh.
You have no chance. I remember giving a talk at Marquette, and at the end of the talk, among the questions that was asked, a young black man got up and he said, even though I am graduating from Marquette University, what hope is there for me? And having gone...
Yeah, what hope is there for him, because he knows that college degree is not going to save his black ass from getting shot. It's not going to save his black ass from getting lynched. You think a mob of white people looking to lynch a nigga is gonna be like, oh, let's lynch that nigga right there, and he's gonna be like, no, sir, I got my college degree right here, and they're gonna be like, oh, darn it, Jimmy, I told you we need a nigga that don't have his college degree. You think that's really gonna happen? No, don't think so. And once again, I can't confirm or deny this story that he's telling, but trying to put myself in that black man's shoes, he's probably thinking, just because I got this college degree doesn't mean that these white people, these crackers, is going to give me a fair shake. I got to be lucky. I got to bite my tongue. I got to kiss some butts. I got to lick some boots. And maybe he didn't want to do that. So what hope does someone back then as a black person have? You know what I'm saying? Like, either lick the boots or you just gonna have to live a rough life.
Through college when I was in the 50s, I don't remember any blacks saying that in the 1950s.
He doesn't remember any blacks saying that in the 1950s. Oh my God. I don't, maybe because he didn't have a lot of black friends. Maybe because I don't know. He was walking with his head down. That's what was happening. He was walking around like this with his ears closed, eyes closed, and not listening. Because I'm pretty sure not every black man who was born in or who was alive in the 1950s is going to be like, yeah, there was really nothing going on back then for black people. We all lived in harmony, and I didn't see any lynchings. Nothing happened. Like, what?
When there was a lot more obstacles to overcome than there were when this guy is graduating from Marquette. But you have to produce that kind of feeling in order to serve the interests of those in the race industry.
Somewhere watching this interview.
Yeah. I think, yeah, it's just about done. 40 seconds. He ain't gonna say nothing but except for, kiss the white man's ass, lick his boots, you know what I'm saying? So let's go to the last video. I'm gonna try, as quick as possible. Let's go to this last video and see what other common questions or concerns come up when talking about reparations. Let's go. Now, this one right here is a quick video. It's only 5 minutes, 41 seconds. This is Bill Maher, which I like this show, but he throws me off sometimes. So it is what it is, but this conversation right here, once again, I wish I could just bam right there in the throat and just keep on pushing. But he's talking to Charlamagne the God, which I highly respect now, because he be speaking what's happening today in a way that a lot of people can understand. But let's take a look at this and see what these people talking about.
Last month, the Biden administration said, speaking of money, they want to study reparations. Study it. Compensate descendants of slaves for unpaid labor by their ancestors. Jen Psaki, the press spokesman, said, we'll see what happens in the legislative process. I'm curious where you are on this issue. I mean, there's a collective guilt
Collective guilt. Remember that.
that's asking individuals to recompense. I think that's how we would frame that.
Listen, I think reparations have to happen for black people. You know what I mean? 'Cause
How he phrased that, white people feeling guilty. First off, you should feel guilty. You know what I'm saying? If you have any American pride, if you're a so-called patriot of the United States of America, if you always put your hand over your heart and look at that flag and say the American anthem. If you're that kind of patriot, then you should feel guilty for how this country was built in a horrific way that it was, and nothing to atone that has ever happened. You know what I'm saying? You should feel guilty. And then, but what's most important, and this is where Martin Luther King and other leaders like that try to not just attack the minds of people, but the hearts, because after guilt, I want compassion. And after compassion comes the sympathy and the understanding. And once you understand, then you can be like, yeah, reparations needs to happen. I just don't want the guilt. What am I going to do with guilt? That doesn't mean anything. Normally, when you do something to someone, or if you know someone has been done wronged and you're in the position to fix that, because like he said, white people didn't do anything today, but you can still have empathy and sympathy for someone or a group of people and be like, you know what? We can fix that now. Guilt without action, without sympathy, is dead. I just made that up. I think that sounds pretty good. But we need more than guilt. Guilt is not going to do anything.
Slavery was America's original sin, and I really don't think.
And the original sin of America was how Christopher Columbus and those crackers killed the indigenous people, killed all those Indians and stole the land. That was the original sin. I'm pretty sure Charlemagne the God, he, just talking, he's on stage, you know what I'm saying? Just a misspeak. That's fine. Let me rewind.
I think that's how we would frame that.
Listen, I think reparations have to happen for black people. You know what I mean? Because slavery was America's original sin. And I really don't think no good is going to come to this country until they atone for their original sin, which was slavery. I mean, my ancestors literally built this country for free. So when you see all of this money being thrown around, $27 trillion in national debt, $1.7 trillion for failed F-35 fighter jets.
$500,000 for dogs.
$500,000 for fucking dogs. It's like if you're black in this country, you have to be like, well, what the hell? What's up with us? You know what I mean? So for me personally,
but again,
I don't even see what the issue is.
The issue is that that's the collective guilt. But individual white people are saying, I didn't do it, and my ancestors didn't even do it, and you are not your ancestor.
Like I said, you don't have to have done something to want to and put yourself in a position to help out, for reparations. And like I said, the definition of reparations is to make amends for a wrong one has done by paying money to or otherwise helping those who have been wronged. That's what reparations mean. And just like when a tragic situation will happen and people see it on the news and on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, they donate money because they didn't do it, but they feel something in their heart like, I want to help. The best way I can help is to give money. So I don't understand why all of a sudden he's like, oh, we didn't do it, so therefore, like, what needs to be done? It's like, you're missing the whole point of reparations. He even gave a somewhat lukewarm, watered down, halfway cookie cut definition of reparations. You know what I'm saying? So oops, I mean,
Ancestors. That's
I'm a descendant of those ancestors.
yes,
I
know,
listen,
but
when a debt is old, a debt is old. Period.
But you've got a lot of money, so you say you should get more.
Should I get?
Yes, he's African American. There's no. Do you think when slavery was becoming a thing and they were taking black people and putting them on the ships, do you think they looked at one African like, oh, he seems to be wealthy, like, we're not gonna take him? Like, no, get your black ass on that boat. They didn't care about that. So why all of a sudden do we need to care who gets reparations or not? Like, no, just how they didn't care who they took, how they ripped apart families, how they murdered and mistreat black people. They didn't ask, were you wealthy? They didn't ask how much money you had. They didn't ask how intelligent you was. And if you was intelligent, they probably killed you because they don't need you, trying to plot and plan against them. So why all of a sudden do we need to put credentials in ways on who gets reparations or not? Like, that to me right there is a red flag. So if I was Charlamagne, I'd be like, yes, because I am a descendant. You ain't gonna try to put no, this is who we gonna give it to, but to each his own.
Period.
But you've got a lot of money, so you say you should get more.
Should I get more?
Well, no, you should get a check.
Yes, I'm 97% West African, born in Charleston, South Carolina, so I should definitely get a check. But if it's to the point where, you make too much money, we don't think you deserve it, cool, give it to somebody who needs it. But to act like black people in this country don't deserve reparations is absolutely nuts to me. Hey, this is what I want. Put it like this, America, just treat black people like they're F-35 fighter jets. You had $1.7 trillion to throw at that bullshit.
1.7 trillion.
Throw it at the people who actually built this country.
But
I don't see how anybody can dispute that.
But again, you didn't build this country.
So what?
You personally did.
So what? I'm a descendant.
But I'm saying we can't write a check to.
And this is my greatest fear, because 99.9% of white folks is going to use this excuse right here. You didn't do it. But guess what? The whole 10 acres and a mule, or was that ever given? No, it wasn't. America broke that promise, and many promises broken after that. So now we're in the point where you didn't build this country, so we don't need to give you the money. So it's like, there's no reparations to give. There was no wrong. The people that was done wrong died. Many generations after that was mistreated and had to struggle because of the past of their whole family dying and their businesses being destroyed. Now it's just like, no one's alive to give this money to. So like, what needs to, it's like, really. And this is what happens, black people taking their time and trying to, it's like, then they're going to play this like, oh, well, no one's alive now, so we don't need to take responsibility. That's my greatest fear.
To a ghost,
Why not?
Why not? Because,
Especially when the ghost's descendants are still
well, that's a descent.
here. Listen, let me ask you a question. How do you right the wrong?
And tell me the definition of inheritance. You know what I'm saying? Which a lot of white people, especially back then when they had the free houses and the free land, and they were able to get these loans for extremely cheap from these banks that, black people built. Inheritance was passed down to their kids and their kids' kids. And that money, if done right, which I'm pretty sure a lot of them done it right, just grew upon that. That's called wealth. Not being rich. They were wealthy. You know what I'm saying? They didn't do anything to get that money. The only thing that qualified them for an inheritance was just to be in that lineage of whatever family. We don't have a problem with that. But when it comes to reparations, oh, you weren't around back then. Like, come on.
Wrong of slavery then?
Well, I mean, I think reparations can come in many forms.
Why not? Cash is king. It's America.
Can come in many forms.
Reparations do come in many forms. So we should be spending much, much more on the schools that serve black children.
We should be. This is 2021, and it hasn't. Just like he said, $1.something trillion to the military, which, like, really, that's a whole nother subject. But black neighborhoods are still the same. And he's saying, yeah, you could have done this years upon years upon years upon years ago. Now all of a sudden, yeah, we should be, but do you think, really, and that's it? No, it would be trillions upon trillions upon trillions of dollars into education.
We should be spending much, much more on the infrastructure in black and predominantly
We
black
should, but
communities.
haven't.
We should be doing all sorts of things to close the
And
opportunity.
you should just be doing that upon a simple fact. These are people who live in America. Not because they're black and we need like, no, these are cities that are in states that are a part of the United States. Like, what is going on here? He even pointed that out. We should be putting money into these education systems in these neighborhoods. We should be building upon the infrastructure in these neighborhoods, like as if we're not a part of the American, like as a whole. That should already be a basic thing that's already done. You know what I'm saying? You don't get credit for doing something that you should have been doing. You know what I'm saying? Like going to work and expecting your boss to give you a pat on the back because you showed up on time. You're supposed to be doing that. That's the basic requirement that you should be doing. So what he's saying is we should be putting money into schools and infrastructure of these communities. Nigga, you should be doing that anyway. Why do we have to put that into reparations, nigga? Like, you should have been doing that a long time ago. So don't mix in, oh, we should like let African Americans like vote and let them get jobs. Like, no, don't put that basic stuff in reparations. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Opportunity gap, which is enormous, and which we've done a terrible job closing. A debt is owed, and that's one of the ways you repay it.
Simple as
the
that.
problem I have with the reparations conversation is the questions you were asking a moment ago. It's practically a non-starter. I mean, in terms of practicality, no one's going to agree on the terms. No one's going.
who is no one? Who is no one? I don't get it. Like, do we got to take a poll across the nation to get a census, to get an idea of who believes a wrong has been done in American history? I'm talking about throughout like since the beginning of the United States and I want to say maybe 1990s. That's mid 1990s. That's when things started to kind of smooth out. You know what I'm saying? They stabbed us with a 10-inch knife, and around 1995, like, they pulled that 10-inch out of our back like 5 inches. We still got 5 more inches to go, but they pulled it out a little bit. But who's going to argue a wrong hasn't been done? I know these racist ass motherfuckers.
Going to agree exactly on the eligibility criteria. Nobody's going to agree on the amount, and it's
Eligibility requirement. If you're black, like I said, that was the only requirement back then to be put in slavery, to be stolen and forced into slavery. The only requirement was the color of your skin. I love how they're trying to be like, oh, we got, like, no. The color of your skin is your only requirement, because that's how it was back then.
terms. No one's going to agree exactly on the eligibility criteria. Nobody's going to agree on the amount, and it's politically very...
Yeah, because the amount would be tremendously huge. Oh, those are my in my other notes. The amount would be tremendously, ridiculously huge. So yeah, we definitely can't put a number on that.
unpopular, and while we're talking about something that I don't think is passable, and that's why Obama didn't talk about it.
Why is it
in
not
office.
passable, though?
What?
Why is it not passable?
Look at public opinion polls. It's just not going to get.
Look at public. Let's look at all these crackers who don't want to, like.
Done. And that's not about the merits, that's about the appeal out there. And in the meantime, there's so much we can and should be doing that could be called reparations about the debt we owe.
Well, let's change the name. Call it economic equity packages. Whatever it is, as he said, a debt is
you
owed.
could say Obamacare, which helped black and brown people way more than white people. Obviously, all people can.
Once again, Obamacare, health care should be a basic minimum requirement the government should be doing for its people. The government is there to serve the civilians within the United States? Why are we acting like this is just some like out of the box things people are asking for? Like, healthcare should be a basic thing. So why are you trying to be like, oh, well, you know, they can go to the doctors. Like, can't that be reparate? Like, the nerve of these crackers.
Sign up for a bank, but that is the practical effect
Yeah,
of
they're
it.
practical.
Is a form of reparations.
No.
You know, I mean, there's a tax that everybody pays. I don't think it's
Just
capped.
slap them.
You know, rich people pay more. Those kind of solutions are different. I mean, can I listen to me what Glenn Larry says? He says, it frames the moral claims African Americans legitimately have in the wrong way. The idea this debt can be paid is a terrible idea. That's his.
Here's the thing. Once again, it's white people not wanting to be held accountable.
Well, that's a black person.
Well, oh, he's okay. A black person.
Glenn
said that.
Larry said that.
Okay, what's his name?
Glenn Larry, you know Glenn Larry.
Well, I just think that it's a debt that is owed to black people in America. Simple. And I'll ask the question: if y'all don't think it should be cash, what should it be? If y'all don't think it should be, if there should be any reparations to black people, what should it be?
All right. So
No, I want to know: do you think that black people should get reparations?
I think it should be more like what Frank and I are saying. Different, not a check. No.
What Frank and I are saying, like, we're letting you live in our country, we're letting you work. That's what you wanted, right? Like you Negroes got basketball, and you Negroes, like, you can like go to school now. Like, can't that be reparations? Like, man, really, this is the ignorance that we got to work with.
No, I think it should be done more by class. I mean, 21% of blacks are below the poverty line. So that means we're giving checks to 80% of people who are not in poverty.
It doesn't matter, because wealthy people today still obtain more wealth in sometimes damn near illegal ways. Extortion, they still in. And just, you know, like, this is probably, you know, a couple years older, but when Trump was in office, he gave the wealthy even more tax cuts, and nobody cared. That passed like butter. But when we talking about giving reparations to a group of people who are descendants of slaves, well, you know, there's a lot of rich Negroes out there. Like, we can't let them get more rich. We can't allow them to be wealthy. That'll put them up in our level, Bob. We can't allow that. Like, really.
Shouldn't it better be done that if we're going to
I-
pass out money? That's what I was starting to show. If we're going to pass out money, let's pass
It should
it out
start with
to
the
the
poor and disenfranchised.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, and
100%.
is a
I agree with that.
one-time check going to change a life as much as a real investment?
No, a one-time check of a couple of million, it would be so much. You can literally give every single black person, and this is just a low conservative estimate just for the sake of math. You know what I'm saying? Because once again, you can't calculate the amount that will be paid, because we're not just talking about slavery. We're talking about Jim Crow. We're talking about redlining. We're talking about the assassinations of cities of black people. We're talking about the killings. We're talking about the trauma. We're talking about the mishandling when it comes to policing back then. We're talking about everything, because all that ties into each other. It's going to be a huge number. So you can literally give just about every single black person $1 million. That's like low ball, like to the T low balling. And trust me, you put $1 million in my hands, that's going to change my life. So this cracker's like, oh, if we put a check into people's hands, you think that's really going to help them? First off, I can't speak for every black person, but I can speak for myself. And I don't know why he's assuming that more it's a large chunk of black people who's not going to know how to handle money. Like, oh my God, I got all this money, I'm just gonna like jump off a building. Like, I'm just gonna spend all my money on crack cocaine and strippers. Like, no. A small amount, yeah. I think a small amount might just do that. You know, might be a little crazy with their money, but who cares? Like I told you, the criteria of being a slave, the criteria of getting lynched back then, the criteria of getting killed was just being black. So I think that should be the only criteria of reparations.
And education, as much as a real investment in young people's social programs?
I think it should be all
I
of
think
that.
a debt is owed. and
Yeah,
I-
it should be all of that. It should be a check and a whole bunch more. In my next video, I'm going to break it down to how I feel reparations would look like. Trust me, it's going to be everything.
have no problem paying it in cash. I'm just talking about where the money goes to help the most number of people the quickest.
Yeah, I think it should be all of that simply because there is really no price point that you could put on reparations for slavery. Like none. Like there's no number you can put on what my ancestors went through in this country.
Yeah.
All right, guys, thank you for watching. I know this is a long video, but hopefully we learned something. Hopefully I said some things that you haven't thought about. Once again, let's have this conversation, bro. Don't be shy. Don't be behind your phone. Let's just have a conversation. If I said anything wrong, if I misspoke about something, or if I missed something, go ahead, put that in the comments. I'm trying not to burp, man. I'm drinking all this soda. Put that in the comments, man. Let's have a conversation because that's the only way things are going to change. And if I gotta have this conversation by myself, looking at this camera every single day, then damn it, I'm gonna do it because it has to start with somebody. You know what I'm saying? Change doesn't start until somebody decides to step up and speak. You know what I'm saying? So who is going to have this conversation with me? But once again, it's your boy, Superior, and this is Superior Thinking. And I will see you guys in the next video you're watching right now. Peace.